There's a lot of beautiful things in this world, and one of the things I think is more beautiful than anything else is just the written word. And there are so many good opening sentences to so many good, like, things of literature. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Charles Dickens, A Tale of Cities. In my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice that I've been turning over in my head ever since. F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby. We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert when the drugs began to take hold. Hunter S. Thompson, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Two houses, both alike in dignity. Bill Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet. The sun did not shine. It was too wet to play. So we sat in the house all that cold, cold day. Dr. Seuss, The Cat in the Hat. But you know what I love more than the written word? I love the spoken word. And there is only one line that starts off the greatest conversations better than all those. And it goes like this. And welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. Today's episode, it's going to be a good one. And we're going to talk about, will your Pokemon journey have a happy ending? And I think that is the age-old question that everybody is asking, right? Will your journey be happy? And what do I mean by that? Listen, recently, I love the RAL Discord. Absolutely love it. Love almost all the people in there. It's one of the best places on this entire hobby, especially if you want to grow yourself in this hobby and join that happy hour chat and join the general chat. I think it's a great place, especially if you want to learn new information. Join the Rattle Discord. But there is a group in the Rattle Discord which is just complaining about the Blake's breaks. And that group, while I really enjoy some of the people that are in there, I'm listening and reading, I should say, some of the things people are saying, and I'm looking at these people, and there were some people spent thousands of dollars on Blake's breaks only to be scammed. A lot of super, super unhappy people. The worst part of all that Blake's break stuff is they're not happy because of how much they were scammed. And I'm looking at how much money all these people spent, and I said, my God, I don't know if they're going to have a happy Pokemon journey in this hobby. And if they do, I don't see their endings being very happy. Maybe if we're lucky, they've learned their lessons, and because they were scammed and the Blake's break stuff is over and now they're more or less salty, hopefully they'll never let that thing happen again and they'll never be scammed again. But I had to take a hard look earlier today, and I thought about Blake's breaks, and I said, you know what? Right now they're banned from Whatnot, and a lot of people are happy for that. But I do believe if Blake joined Whatnot tomorrow, meaning they just let him back on the platform, I honestly believe that Blake and his crew, if he wanted to, they can go right back to business tomorrow, and there would still be people in his streams. There would still be people playing those same bounty games. They would still be playing Guess the Energy. They would still be playing Match the Energy. They would still be buying packs from him. Even with everything that has come to light, people would still join his streams just to be a part of it. And I thought about that. I thought about that real hard yesterday. I said, man, that is probably a reality. And I know people are talking about, potentially Blake's breaks moving to a different platform. I don't know if that's going to be Drips or if that's going to be a new platform. And then people are upset by that. I can't believe these platforms would allow this person to join these platforms. And I was thinking, I'm like, he would have an audience. He would have a clientele. How sad is that? And then I was thinking about that. I'm like, man, the people that would be his clientele, is it possible for them to have their Pokemon journey ever have a happy ending? And I came to a hard realization yesterday that there are some people in this hobby that will have more or less that fairy tale type ending in this hobby. And they're going to probably stick around in this hobby forever. And they're going to grow in this hobby. And listen, I said it before and I'll say it again. There's a lot of people that recently got back into this hobby. That 2000 catalyst that was the quarantines, the lockdown, everybody joined back in. 2021, everybody got, crash courses in Pokemon. And 2022, they grew. And here they are in 2023. And I think those people are going to continue to grow into this hobby. And that's a short amount of time. That's 3 years. That's 3 years into a 25 plus long year hobby. And this has been the last 3 years have been the strongest in this hobby. But then I say, okay, what if we can multiply that three and turn it from now from 3 years to 6 years, and then 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 years in the future? I mean, those are very aggressive numbers. When you start saying, 20, 30, 50 years, it's aggressive. But I think about it this way. I'm like, okay, if we've seen so much growth from 2020 to 2023, we've seen such a well-established just collector base, investor base, but we still have, call these guys Timmies or whatever you want, the people that are still going to have that rough journey. I say, how strong is this hobby going to be in 6 years, is assuming that people do not leave? And I think there's a lot of avenues. I think there's a lot of avenues where people stay. I think there's a lot of avenues where people leave. I think the easiest avenue, in my opinion, again, this is always my opinion. Everything I say on this channel is my opinion. But I do believe that people's greatest, exit point or fastest way to get to that exit point is everybody in this hobby has a finite amount of money. And if people spend all that money right at the beginning and they're making very poor financial purchases, decisions real early on in this hobby, there will be no money at the end. And they'll never be able to just, ride out the long game, which is Pokemon. And I've talked about this before. Pokemon is not a sprint. It is not a 100-yard dash. This is a marathon of marathons of marathons. It never ends. And the reason why it's a marathon is because Pokemon as a company, they never stop. Pokemon as this hobby as a whole is a marathon. Pokemon the company is a train. They are a freight train moving down the tracks, moving in one direction. They are always moving forward. Very, very rarely does Pokemon ever move in a backwards direction. That train is always chugging along the tracks. And what do I mean by that is Pokemon is always printing new sets. Very rarely are they going back and reprinting. We've seen some reprints. Definitely not as much as a lot of people would hope for a lot of these products, but Pokemon is just chugging down this track. So you have to have that marathon type mentality in your head where, you can't sprint right at the beginning of a marathon because you're going to be gassed after 100, 200 yards. You have to be able to run for that entire thing. So it's a slow, steady pace. And I have a feeling that there are some people in this hobby are still, even to this day, they have not learned that. They are still just gassing themselves at the finish line, and they're more or less just running on fumes at this point. And it goes into a lot of things. It's like the poor decisions people, make financially, people maxing out credit cards, people I've talked to in this hobby, people that I've seen who make these mistakes, and people that are always trying to play catch up. They feel like they can never get ahead in this hobby. And I feel like that is a scary thought to think too. There's a lot of the people I talk to, they say they always feel like they're lagging behind. They can never get ahead. And one of the reasons they can never get ahead is because they feel they're always financially stretched in this hobby. And some people will say out there you got to let people be adults. You got to let them just spend their own money. It's their money. Let them do what they want. And it's yeah, I guess that's one way to look at it, But I also watch all these YouTube videos where they'll set up a situation where some terrible event is happening, just terrible event, and they see if anybody, just a normal person, will walk in and try to prevent that from happening, or do people just keep walking past and they just let some terrible event happen? You see it happen all the time. And is the argument always going to be, well, that terrible event that was happening to somebody, that person's an adult. They need to just figure it out on their own. Who am I to just help them? Why do I want to help some random person that might be in need? And for me, when I hear people say, everybody's an adult, let them make their own decisions, I always just pull back and I say, sometimes people need a little bit of help. And if they don't need help, maybe they just need a little bit of guidance. And in this hobby, I think it just takes a little bit of guidance to just push people in the right direction. Whether that is grade your own cards if you are buying modern 10s. And again, modern 10s, what do I mean by modern 10s? I mean, if it's readily available on the market in mass, it's super easily sourceable, that's a modern 10. As time keeps ticking, as the marathon keeps going longer into the race, as the freight train that is Pokemon continues to go down the track, what is modern, what is easily sourceable, what is easily abundant, what is easy to source and grade, that becomes harder and harder the further down the track you run, the further down that marathon you run. So that changes all the time. But what do I mean by that? Grade your own modern 10s. Please don't ever buy modern 10s. And when I look at the Pokemon journey and people, I look at like, what are they spending? And it's like, oh man, I see a lot of like crazy purchases still to this day. And, you know, when you look in very recent timeline, there's a lot of cards that did very, very well. Especially a lot of like raw cards, single cards. If you got in the right thing, if you are able to identify what other people are undervaluing, and maybe you identify something, you say, I believe that this is undervalued. I believe the market is going to move to a certain area in the hobby. A perfect example of that is what happened with team up cards. There was a group of people identified team up cards as potentially being undervalued, and that they thought that there would eventually be a group of people that would want to move into team up cards. So they recognized something that were undervalued. They did their best to corner that market. Maybe corner the market isn't a good way to phrase it, but like they tried to build decent sized positions in that area of the hobby, hoping that eventually demand would move there. And that did happen. And then, you know, but this is the problem too, is there are so many people out there who, when I said that comment, they can never get ahead. And it's like, well, how can you never get ahead? And there's a lot of examples in modern Pokemon that if people had really poor price points, they're not ahead right now. And that might sound crazy to you. It's like, well, how can you not be ahead if you bought modern? Everything in modern has gone up in value. Everything. And it's like, this is all correct, depending on where you bought in at. Where are your price points? Did you buy Chillin' Reign from the Pokemon Center? Did you pay $143.99? Because if that happened, you had the watch prices retrace. Because let's not sugarcoat this hobby. Let's not pretend like stuff didn't happen. PokemonCenter.com, when Chillin' Reign was released, it went out of stock. Meaning, Pokemon Center sold out on their entire allocations of Chillin' Reign booster boxes before that reprint happened. Meaning there was, I can't even imagine, hundreds to thousands upon thousands of Chillin' Reign booster boxes bought from PokemonCenter.com for $143.99. There were people who watched those Chillin' Reign boxes go from $143 to $120, all the way down to $80, and then it took literally years for those to just get back to breaking even. And yeah, if you're that person, I can see how this hobby would be very hard to get ahead, because you would be looking around and be like, well, everybody else is doing great. How come I'm not? And I think that is one of the things that people would just have to start to determine for themselves in this hobby. If your Pokemon journey is going to have a happy ending, you can't like do the sprint. You have to be patient. Now, when you talk about Chillin' Reign booster boxes, you know, we quote the $80 booster box, and that's why I always quote my video, as I walk through the valley, the $79.95 booster box, I fear no evil, because that was when I acquired my positions of Chillin' Reign, because I like that price point. I've talked about it before. Even at that time, even though $80 was a good price, I still could have also picked up Evolving Skies at $95. And instead of picking up a bunch of Evolving Skies booster boxes at $95, I chose to pick up Chillin' Reign at $80, which was not a bad decision because Chillin' Reign still went up in value. But the gains I could have made if I just spent $15 more a booster box instead of spending $80, I spent $95, and I bought the same amount in Evolving Skies. Like, the trajectory of what I bought changes so drastically. And instead of currently sitting on my largest positions of cases being in Chillin' Reign, how nice would that be able to say that same sentence as, I wish my biggest position in booster boxes were cases of Evolving Skies. I just can't say that. I wish I could, but I can't. But in the moment, you see $80 post $95. And sure, everyone can play Monday morning quarterback after the fact, but in reality, like, that wasn't really what happened. A lot of people went in for that cheaper product, whether it was Chillin' Reign or Fusion Strike. Even somebody who is one of the most bearish people in this entire hobby, who bought some of the biggest positions we have ever seen anybody do. Rudy from Alpha Investments. Rudy talks about buying Chillin' Reign all the time. Talks about buying Fusion Strike all the time. He was in the same position. He could have just bought, instead of all that of Chillin' Rain he bought, instead of all that Fusion Strike, he could have bought Evolving Skies. You know, he bought thousands of boxes of Chillin' Rain. Imagine if you could magically flip a light switch and turn those thousands of boxes of Chillin' Rain into Evolving Skies. How beautiful that would be, to just have thousands of boxes of Evolving Skies. But you don't know. You don't always know. But now, the thing is, too, is you know, we can play Monday morning quarterback now, and when you look at Chillin' Rain booster boxes and they crash down to $80, the only reason they get down to $80 is because that big reprint happened. Not only did that big reprint happen in a perfect storm. What I mean by perfect storm is that was released. So Chillin' Rain was released, Fusion Strike was released, Battle Styles reprint was released, and Evolving Skies. All four of those sets all hit reprints at the same time. All those booster boxes flooded onto the market at the exact same time. It was this weird perfect storm of product dump from distribution, which still to this day never really made 100% like sense. Like, how did all those booster boxes all get dumped on the exact same time? And for some of the LGSs who are really like leveraging debt and stuff in order to pick up these products, there was a lot of people who got huge bills for a ton of product that, while they might have been expecting it, they just weren't expecting it all at once. And they had no choice but to fire sale these products. So because all these compound things happen at once, we got to see $80 booster boxes. There's a story to be had that maybe if all those other boxes don't hit the market at the same time, maybe Chillin' Rain never actually hits $80. Maybe it just stayed at $100 and buying pressure was pretty strong because there was nothing else to buy. The things that drove down these prices was you had an option to buy literally anything you wanted. You wanted Fusion Strike, get it. You wanted Battle Styles, get it. You wanted Chillin' Rain, get it. You wanted Evolving Skies, get it. Shining Fates, if you wanted Shining Fates too, if you wanted a specialty set, it was there. You could get it. Yeah, it was your choice. And then, you know, things were coming down the line, like Celebrations was right around the corner too. Like, there was a lot of stuff going on, like perfect storm. So, you know, but this is the thing I say, when I title this video, will your Pokemon journey have a happy ending? It's like, I always say, when you want to talk about like investing in Pokemon, you have no choice but to live in the today. Because one of the arguments for sealed product, especially when it comes to Pokemon, is sealed product's easy. You could close your eyes, you can buy a case, stick it in your closet, and then just wait for that to, you know, increase in value. And that's true. But it's not true if you bought your case from Pokemon Center right at release of Chillin' Rain. Then in fact, that money now took years to just become even, and that money has been so stagnant for such a long time in this hobby that's years. We are talking years. Can you imagine, in the most bullish, most crazy hype time in Pokemon, where everything is going up around you, you're sitting on a case of Pokemon product that could potentially have not gone up at all in years? I mean, but like that's a reality we live in. That is real life. But no, I mean, when I look at that Pokemon group in Rattle's Discord and I hear all the issues that people have with Blake's Breaks, like, there's a part of me and I'm just like, oh, why were you doing this for as long as you were doing this, and how did you get to the dollar amounts you got to? Like, there are some big dollar amounts that people spend on Blake's Break now that I'm finding out these numbers, because people are becoming transparent at what they bought. And one of the things that I always struggled with was getting to that Blake's Break dollar amount, where they said Blake's Break made over $11 million. $11 million in this hobby. I'm telling you, it's a lot. And I've mentioned this, I want to say my last live or the live before that. I know a lot of people doing what I consider big things in this hobby, moving big numbers. Big numbers can be 1.5 million, 2 million. That is like some of the bigger people I know in this hobby. And that's, a lot of that's eBay sales and stuff like this. 1.5, 2 million. 1.5, 2 million, while that is a lot of money, that is far away from 11 million. So I look at that 11 million in Blake's Break, and, I just like, wow, that is money that has just been sucked out of this hobby. Money that will never go back into this hobby, probably. That money might have left forever. And, Rattle makes his videos showing, like, all the money that Blake's people were spending, but you ask yourself, you look at those people, you say, can that be a happy ending for these people? I don't know. I mean, I do believe that the most important thing we have going on in this hobby right now, in order to allow you to have a happy ending in this hobby, the most vital thing in this hobby is just the community. And I know that word gets thrown around, and it really, sadly, it gets dragged through the mud, the word community, because every hype beast, every person that ever does poor in this hobby, or like bad things, evil things, shady things, their first word they always want to throw around is they're for the community. And they do giveaways and they do all this stuff. And we've seen this happen now, play out time and time again. And how many videos Rattle is doing that. And it's so sad that the word community in this hobby has just been pulled through the absolute ringer. But I feel like we have to do our best to like take that word back from these people too. Because really, when you think about the word community, it is true in this hobby, though. Even though the word gets abused and gets used too much, like, at the end of the day, there's a reason why those people still use that word, because it still does hold something. And we have to do whatever we can to pull community back from those evil people and be willing to even just say the word again. And the fact that I mention the word community and I say it with, like, oh, I hate saying it, but it's the truth. Every time Rattle brings up community, he does the same thing. He goes, I hate saying it, but it's the truth, And like, anybody who says the word community, like, you mean it, though. It's just that word's so tarnished at this point. But if we could pull that word back and go to what I'm trying to say is, in order to keep this hobby moving forward, in order to keep your Pokemon journey, allowing it to have a happy ending, sure, there's a financial aspect. But I do believe in my heart of hearts, and this is truth, that I think the community is the most important thing. I think if the community looks out for each other, and the community helps each other to grow, that this community could go a lot of big places. Now, this is a problem, and this is a reality that I've accepted, and I'm sure a lot of people out there have accepted too. Like, there will always be the fringes of this hobby. This is a massive hobby. We can make, like, there's no lying about that. This hobby is so massive, and I always say this stuff, and shout out the Basic Trainer. Basic Trainer says the same thing. We are in the absolute niches of the niches of the niches sometimes. And then there's even subsections of different niches within a giant niche. And, I think the people who go down the rabbit hole will do really well in the long term. And then I think, like, as you get out of that, like, super deep inner circle, and there will be, like, different rings around. Imagine it's a big circle, and then you have a very few people in the middle, and as that circle continues to go out, those rings get bigger, and as those rings get bigger, there's more and more people, until eventually, going, far enough outside that circle, that farthest ring has the most people around it. And those most people encompass this entire hobby. And will those people at the very edge of that circle, will they ever be able to make it to the center? Some of them will. But for the majority of them, they'll always stay on the outside. So, but that doesn't mean that we should always, like, do everything we can to take advantage of those people or hurt those people. We should at least put the information out there where if they want it, they can have it. And, like, that's one of the things I try to do on this channel. That's why I'm always talking about things that are open. The Rattle Discord is an open place. Anybody can join it. Anyone can join the Rattle Happy Hour on Saturday. I was in there last Saturday. Rattle's in there. There's a bunch of knowledgeable people. Rage Quit's in there. If you ever have questions, reach out to Rage. Rage is one of the smartest people in this hobby. Like, there are so many people that hang out in that Rattle Discord. And one of the things I try to do with my channel is, like, none of this is behind paywalls. It's open. If you want it, you can watch it. Nobody forces people to watch it. And I always found that, like, interesting too, that there are just some people that, even if the information's out there, if the information is too long, they hate that information. Poor Rattle. I've been watching Rattle's videos and reading his comments. He's got, like, I think he's up to 12 or 13 parts for his Blake series. And people's biggest complain about that is that the videos are too long. I love those long videos. It gives me something to listen to when I'm at work. And I've mentioned it before. I love videos that I can just put my headphones on. Same way people listen to Spotify. Same way people listen to Pandora at work. I don't listen to music. I just listen to Pokemon videos in the background. And I don't have to visually watch that, those are the videos I like the most. I just put in my ear and listen. That is a lot of what this video is. This is just a conversation. This is the longest. I'm going for the world record. Just like Pat Flynn got his world record for most packs open on a single event at a single moment, I want to go for just the Guinness Book World Record for the longest unended Pokemon conversation. And that's what this channel is, and that's what these videos are. And I've talked about this before. They are not individual videos. They are just one long conversation. And I'm hoping, and my goal is that conversation is always adapting. I never want to stay stagnant. And I think that a lot of people that if they do want to grow in this hobby, if they do want to have like a successful journey, like you can't stay stagnant too. You got to be able to grow. You got to be able to adapt. And one of the beautiful things about Pokemon too is I feel like a lot of people go through a little bit of like Pokemon burnout on occasion. And what do I mean by that? It's just like that Pokemon burnout is sometimes because Pokemon is that marathon. It is that, the Pokemon, the company is that freight train. It's hard to keep up with the freight train. It's hard to, run in that marathon, especially if you're trying to always lead that pack. It could get exhausting. So a lot of people would just get that burnout and they'll fall behind. But the beautiful thing about Pokemon is even if you burn out a little bit here and there, whenever you're ready to come back, Pokemon is always there. And Pokemon will always be there. So I think if you do want to have a happy ending to your Pokemon journey and continue this into perpetuity and keep it going on for years and years into the future, people throw out timelines all the time. I think they're very arbitrary timelines, but I hear people always talk about 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And some of the people that have been into the hobby for 3 years will say, I'm not going to even sell anything for 10 years. It's like, do you know how long 10 years in this hobby is? 10 years in this hobby brings us back to black and white. That's how far back that long ago brings us. And there's probably a lot of people weren't even around for XY, let alone some people weren't around for Sun and Moon to go all the way back to XY. And 10 years is a long time. But if you just run it as a marathon and you don't burn yourself out, I think the beautiful thing is I think this hobby can just last for everybody forever. Now, one of the more important things too that I've talked about, and this is coming from my own personal experience, and one of the things that I found worked best for me is one of the struggles I always had is there was a while after 2020 where I sold off a ton of my collection, and it wasn't everything. Sometimes I wish I sold off more. Sometimes I'm very happy I didn't sell off more. But for the stuff I did sell off, my collection became so Swiss cheese that one of the things that I found worked best for me is my collection had lost of what I call set identity, collection identity. Because it lost that collection identity, once I was able to start selling off more stuff and saying, what do I truly care about? What is actually important to me? Because, one of the sayings in this hobby is, gotta catch 'em all. That phrase, gotta catch 'em all, while it works from a Pokemon company standpoint, in reality, to catch 'em all is damn near impossible. Unless you're Dave Persons out there, and Dave Persons has one of every single English card ever produced, which is one of the most lofty, hardest goals, and is getting harder for him year after year, worlds after worlds. When he was picking up those very early worlds, when he was going to worlds in 2012 or 2014, whenever he was picking up his world, number 1, number 2 trainer cards, the market to buy those cards then versus now, I can't even imagine the prices people are having to pay in order to get a number 1, number 2, number 3 trophy Pikas from some of these events. And that absolute top of the mountain, highest end, gotta catch them all, gotta buy one of every single modern Pokemon card, one of every single English Pokemon card that's printed. That is an impossible feat, and that's something that I cannot do, nor will I ever do at this point. But once you're able to do that, like I said, find your collection identity. If you look at your collection and you are not happy with your collection, if you're looking at it and you go, I don't care about a lot of this stuff, be willing to get rid of that stuff and move that into stuff you actually do care about. And if you look at your collection and you go through every single slab and every single binder and every single booster box, every single pack, every whatever you're collecting at whatever time, when you get to that point where you look at your entire collection, you go, man, I am so happy with everything I have. I think once you get to that point, that is like a nirvana type moment for a lot of people. It's like, yes, I am so happy because I got there. And, if the cheaper you can do that, the better too, Shout out the Basic Trainer again. I know we mentioned his name earlier in this live. Basic Trainer was one of the first people I ever knew who actually was the most true diehard of PSA 9 collectors. And Basic was able to grow a lot of his collection picking up PSA 9s at a time that people didn't really like PSA 9s. And he is so happy with a lot of his collection, and he has a lot of set identity. But if you can get to that point and you just look at everything you have and you just become happy, when things do pop up that you want to add to your collection, it's easier. And why is it easier? It's because you only got to add like onesies and twosies of certain sets, certain releases. It becomes very relaxing. Like, it just becomes an all-around better experience. And I think if you want to do that long game, that happy ending, that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, in order to get to that, you have to just be happy with where you are in Pokemon. And if you feel that what I'm saying does not describe you, if you look at your collection, if you're looking at your shelf of products, or you're looking at your boxes or your cards or your binders or your single cards or your ungraded cards or your graded pile, and you just look at all this stuff and you go, man, I don't like a lot of this stuff. I wish I didn't own a lot of this stuff. Get to that point where you do look at your collection and you do say you like everything. I think that's just so important. I think it's such a vital part of this hobby. But yeah, it's just I love this hobby, and it's funny. The thing that is getting me like more engaged in this hobby. So, believe it or not, every day that goes by where I thought eventually there would come a point where making my YouTube channel, doing these lives, starting like to become a little bit more aggressive on eBay, like opening my like a new eBay account and kind of making some of the plays available and hopping into more Discords and hopping into more voice chats. I thought a lot of that stuff would take a little bit of a toll on me eventually, but it's weird. It's the opposite I'm experiencing right now. And I think the reason why it's the opposite, where instead of having that stuff take a toll on me, it's actually making me like happier, more engaged in this hobby. And the reason why I'm getting happier and more engaged is that community aspect. The people that I'm interacting with in this hobby on a daily basis is just growing so exponentially. Like I know I haven't been making lives recently in the last 5 days, but I've been in multiple hour-long like video calls with people the last couple days in a row. There was like Friday night, Saturday night, like 3-4 hour long lives. I was able to hop in on Rattle's opening he did, where he was able to actually, shout out to Rattle, congrats man, it was like, what was it, 8 booster boxes? He was able to complete a master set of Obsidian Flames, which 8 booster boxes is a ridiculously low amount. I can't believe he was able to open it like with that few booster boxes. Was it 8 booster boxes or was it more? I think it was only 8. It was like less than 2 cases. Crazy. But, being able to hop in on those, it's just, I'm actually having more fun doing that stuff and just talking to people, talking Pokemon. And I think if people can get there, if you can grow the community aspect of this hobby if you can become more engaged, I think that is what keeps Pokemon going forever. And I know Charlotte's coming up in just about a month timeline from now, so it's like, time of recording this video is like mid-August 2023, so Charlotte CollectorCon's mid-September 2023, so we're about a month away. And the thing that I'm most excited for Charlotte is not to do the consigning, not to be standing behind a table trying to sell cards or anything like that. That is not the stuff I'm looking forward to. The thing I'm looking forward to is the trade nights after the event, the hotel bar after the event, going out to the bar with, people, going out to dinner with people. Like, those are the things that excites me. Those are the things that makes me so excited to go to this Collecticon. Is just the interaction, is that community. And I hope, and I'm telling you, if there's a lot of people out there, if you are deciding to do like one Collecticon, you are willing to do that first in-person event, this might be the one you want to do, is that, Charlotte Collecticon, because I think there's going to be the most people there. I think eventually Charlotte will start to cement itself as one of the more popular events. I am personally hoping that eventually Collecticon pulls their head out of their ass a little bit and they can actually start to have a little bit more events in the Northeast, because right now we're driving down to Charlotte, and so it's me, Nick Old School Pokemon, and Jake Pokenomics. We're all going to be in the same car. It's like a 12, 13-hour drive. So 12, 13-hour drive in a car could get, that's a long drive. And talking to Nick Old School Pokemon, he said that drive down, that's not the rough drive because you're excited. It's that drive back. You had a long weekend, you were out partying with all your friends, having a good time, and then you got to do that 12, 13-hour drive, driving the other way and driving back home, and that can be the brutal drive, and I can definitely see where that can be truth. But the reason why that drive down is so good, like I said, is because you're excited. You get to see all your friends again, and yeah, I think that is, I think there's a lot of things that are compounding, but I think all those things combine to allow people to have this hobby like continue to grow for them. And, I challenge everybody out there watching this video, everybody watching this video live. We got 122 people real time in the chat. Anybody watching this real time or after the fact, challenge yourself. Ask yourself the question. Ask yourself the personal question. Will your Pokemon journey have a happy ending? And will your Pokemon journey last? Does it have the legs underneath it? Will it last? Are you making like the right choices now today? Are you not just living in the moment? Are you living for that long-term type plan? Do you see yourself, think about all the buys you're doing, all the crazy amount of money you might be spending now. Say, can I keep this up? Can I keep up this pace? Can I keep up this pace of spending a ton of money today and still be able to do this next year and then 5 years from now and 10 years from now? Can you keep that up? And if you can't, figure out what can you do? How can you keep that marathon pace? How can you make it work for you so it becomes easier? This hobby, really, when you break it down, this hobby should continually become easier for people. It should not become harder. And I think one of the easiest ways to make this hobby easier for people is just the knowledge. And I know it's in the name of the channel, Pokemon Knowledge, which I don't really love the name of my channel, but it's just something I've now accepted. But it's true. The more knowledge you grow in this hobby, and you'll never know anything, you'll never know everything. And I'm telling you right now, if you ever meet somebody in this hobby who does tell you that they do know everything, they are full of shit. I promise you, with all certainty, 100%, I do not know everything about this hobby, and I will never even pretend like I know everything. And if you ever do meet somebody that says they know everything, they're full of shit. But that's the beautiful thing about this hobby, is you can't know everything. But you can still grow your knowledge. And I always say, when it comes to knowledge, anybody can be an expert in one thing. Nobody can be an expert at everything, but anyone can be an expert at one thing. And just find that one thing. What are you an expert at? And, it's funny, my aunt came over to see the baby the other day. And one of the things she was talking to my wife was my wife's a good cook. I love her cooking, but one of the things my aunt says to her is, one of the good things for people is when you could figure out how to cook one dish really, really well. And what do you mean by that? Well, if you cook one dish really, really well is, what my aunt said was, anytime you go to a party, whether that's a Christmas party or Thanksgiving or whatever, people are always going to ask you to just make that one dish. So if you become really good at one thing, people are only going to ever ask you for that one thing. And just the same way as when you become really good at cooking a dish, and people always ask you to bring that to the party. It's the same way with Pokemon. If you become an expert at one thing, anytime people are talking about something, they're going to want to talk to you about that because you're going to be the one with the most information on that. But like where that might be a little different now, where cooking, you might only know one dish and you bring it to every party because that's what everybody asks. In Pokemon, once you become an expert at one thing, it becomes easier to now become an expert at another thing. And what you do is you just keep doing this. You just keep growing. You become an expert at one thing, and then you become an expert at two things, and three things, and four things, and five things. And none of this has to happen overnight. It's impossible. There's so much information out there in this hobby right now. One of the hardest things, the absolute hardest thing is, even though a lot of information exists, the tough thing could just be pulling that information out and finding where it's hidden, whether it's hidden tucked away in some old E4 thread and nobody's updated that thread since 2016, or if it's on some YouTube channel or it's in some Discord. That information can be all over the place, or Reddit groups or wherever, and then you just, because you're an expert at it, you're able to do all the sourcing yourself. So because you sourced all this information that was out there from your Bulbapedia articles and everything in between, and you're able to now condense that and have all that information lie in one place. And that one place it might lie could just be up here in your brain. But just keep doing that. Keep doing it. One thing, two things, three things, till eventually, given enough time, you've now been able to scour the internet for so many different things as you become an expert on a lot of things, till eventually, hopefully, you get to the point where you become a jack of all trades, master. Instead of a master of none, you just become a jack of all trades, master of a few. And that alone, to say you're a master of a few things in this hobby, that gives you such a leg up on everybody else. The same thing I talked about so early on in this video, where I said this hobby is a giant circle of people. There's very, very few people in the center of that circle. And then as you get out further and further, the rings that surround that inner circle, it's more and more people until you get to that absolute furthest outside ring, which has the most people. If your knowledge is higher than most of the people standing in that circle, you can just become, you find yourself in such a small percentage. And if you become in that smaller percentage, that is really going to be one of those ways that you're going to just keep around in this hobby forever. And I'm excited about that. And I don't want that time machine. I don't want, you ever seen the movie Click with Adam Sandler? Like, it's one of the saddest things too, is Click is not a happy movie. Adam Sandler is a comedian, but it's not a happy movie, because one of the things, you know, is he finds himself fast forwarding his way through life. And every time he fast forward his way through life, like, he misses out on stuff, whether that's his kids growing, or, you know, his relationship with his wife and all this stuff, till eventually he fast forwards too far into the future and he's just an old man. While he might be super successful, he, you know, has lost so much along the way. Like, that's why even though it would be nice to be able to travel 5 years into the future, 10 years, 20 years, and see what all your hard work has done, see how much your hard work has paid off, because I think that's the key. Will what you're doing today, because really you're just laying that foundation. And laying a foundation is as simple as digging a hole, putting down rebar, and pouring a concrete slab. That can sometimes just be what laying the foundation means. And digging that hole and laying that rebar and pouring that concrete, sometimes you wish you can skip it, but even though, yeah, like, you wish you could go to the future and see it, realize that you're living in the now. Realize you're living in the today. And if you realize that, don't take for granted the little things too. And the little things are going to be the day today. And any time you talk to people in this hobby, there are things that I remember, and then there are things that I don't remember, and things that other people remember. Like, one of the things that I don't have, like, a strong finger on the pulse for is what distribution used to be like. Like, now, I don't have distribution, but I'm way more engaged in, like, communicating with people that do have distribution. So when different products roll out in the last couple years, I at least know what it was like from the person buying it from distribution. Rewind a couple years before that, I didn't have the relationship. There were no people out there like Mason Cardinal Gaiman making videos, talking about distribution, talking about supply of products. Sure, Rudy was talking about it a little bit, but Rudy only starts in 2016. Like, before 2016, like, to hear about, well, what was it like when, I like the questions I asked Squeaks Game World when I got to talk to him in one of the Discord lives I was at. I was just asking him, like, hey man, what was it like from distribution for Dark Explorers? Because I've always was curious about Dark Explorers. Like, why did Dark Explorers always have like a weird, it always felt to me that it was weird. Like, maybe it didn't have like a massive dump through distribution. And like, to get that answer from Squeaks, because Squeaks actually had distribution during the black and white era. But then you remove yourself out of black and white, and then you start to ask these questions like, well, what was it like for Diamond and Pearl? What was it like before that? What was it like for the Nintendos and stuff like that, until it gets really hard when you start to talk about WotC, and then you're really starting to like really like scrape together information from a lot of people. And when you start to like pull yourself out that far, and everything then becomes secondhand knowledge. Like, I heard from somebody, this is what it was like, but like, that's still the stuff that I like to know. And like, that's just part of like gaining information, because I think anytime in this hobby, when you're gaining information, anytime you become like an expert in anything, one of my favorite quotes ever is, you need to learn from history, because if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to make the same mistakes. And if you can learn from history, and you can learn from like things that might seem irrelevant now, but yeah, maybe they're irrelevant as like single data points. But when you take single data points and you add it into like a ton of other data points, you're able to pull out so many like so much different information, like so many different hypotheses and stuff, and how you think the future is going to play out. Because history has this funny way to always repeat itself. So, but like, that's all part of my personal Pokemon journey, and the way I think my Pokemon journey will have a happy ending is because all those things are just combined into one. Constantly trying to learn in this hobby, constantly trying to grow myself in this hobby, constantly trying to adapt in this hobby, constantly trying to grow the community aspect of this hobby, constantly trying to find out the history of this hobby, and doing all these things, taking all these data points and making them, like mine. And really, not just making them mine, but hopefully making them ours. Like, one of the things I love to do is bringing people on this channel and conversing with them and talking to them and learning from people that are on my channel. Like, no one knows everything. You need to learn from everyone. And it's the same way as growing up, like learning from different teachers and stuff. Like, no teacher knows it all too. Like, and it's the same way at your job too. Like, you might learn your job from a ton of different people, and you keep pulling little things from different people until you make it your own. And then you're just a hybrid of all these different people you've learned from. So it's as real in real life as it is in this hobby. So, all right, let's see. I just looked down on the chat real quick. But I did my nice little 48-minute rant, which is classic me. I don't think my goal is always 30 minutes for every video. Today, I'm going to look at the chat, so we're not even close. But Giovanni's Pikachu said, PK's thumbnail's always killing it. Yeah, a little Pikachu with a pot of gold. I like that. Jumbo Fitz, good to see you in the chat, man. So Jumbo Fitz is, see, when I say everybody's an expert at like one thing, the thing Fitz is an expert at is Fitz is a jumbo collector. And there's a lot of different, I mean, if you've never been in a like phone call with, or a video call with Fitz, his walls in his collecting room are just covered with jumbos. He's framed every single jumbo. His walls are absolutely covered. And they go from like the absolute original, like 99, 98 Coro magazine jumbos all the way up to like the most modern current, whatever V box is out, and he's got everything. But Fitz is one of those people, when you have And this is the thing I should have mentioned too, is even though you might not be able to become an expert at everything in this hobby, it definitely helps when you know people that are experts. So, because you do know somebody who is an expert, when you do need that information, it could be as simple as one Instagram message away, one Discord message away. And to find information that for fits when it comes to jumbos and how these jumbos were released and what products they were released, whether, like I said, Coral Core magazines or, Pokemon leagues or wherever like certain niche jumbos are from. For me to pull out that information could take hours, and I probably don't want to do that. But I could just do as simple as one Discord message to Fitz, and he's going to probably respond back to me within an hour. And I'm going to get the answer for some super obscure jumbo question. So that's also something we should shout out to Professor Oak for the sneeze. But that's something we also, you should like take into account, that to have that community aspect, to know the people to ask the questions to, and find the people that have the answers to the questions you are asking. That's like a little cheat code right there. So you might not have to put the work in. You just got to ask the right person. Namp90. Namp's a great person if you got super obscure like Pokemon artist questions or Pokemon art like for different cards, Pokemon hidden in the backgrounds of certain artworks. Namp's been able to do some really crazy things too, where he's been able to look at some of the artists. A lot of people out there might not know that there's a lot of Sword and Shield sets where some of the artists, they were doing some original artworks for like Aquapolis, and they are now in Sword and Shield paying homage to some of their Aquapolis artworks or Expedition artworks, things that they have, artworks that they made 2 decades ago. They're paying homage to those artworks in these modern sets by putting that original artwork in the background. So now you are seeing like a different perspective of that old artwork. It's awesome stuff that people are still doing. And shout out to Dan Ketchum Collectibles. One of my favorite quotes in this hobby is from Dan. Don't underestimate artists' ability to art. And like that's another thing too. You want to have a happy ending in Pokemon, like enjoy the artwork. That's really all this is cardboard with different artworks on it. Like the more you enjoy that artwork, but Namp90, he's one of the best people to reach out. He's a great resource for just super obscure artworks. And, Cheval says it's not about the ending, but about the hoarding we make along the way. Yeah. Chill Phil said Johnny Depp did an amazing Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Yeah, so that, I don't know. So that Rolling Stone magazine, if you look right here, I'm sorry. It's not behind the can. It's actually like right above his head where on Rolling Stones it says a tribute to Hunter S. Thompson. So that's one of the reasons I bought that magazine too, is because it's a tribute to him. Let's see. But yeah, Hunter S. Thompson, he's crazy. He did some really, really crazy stuff actually. Let's see. We got number 1 mod in the game. Drew, always good to see you in the chat, my friend. Road to 6,969 subscribers. Nice. I am getting close I'm like 69 subscribers away. If we can make that happen in like the next month, can't wait. That's always been my goal. That's been my goal for a long time, is that 6,969 subscriber mark. And I hope you guys are enjoying these chats, I hope you guys are enjoying the community aspect, and I know they're longer videos, and I know, listen, I'm very well aware, I'm very, conscious of what these videos are. This is going to always be, you got to be more down the rabbit hole to even want to listen to these videos. I get it, but hopefully, as this hobby grows, there will become more and more people that want to watch this type of content, but to be able to get to that 6,969 subscriber milestone would be amazing, because yeah, we live in 2023 where you got PokeRev with 2 million subscribers and Leonhardt with 1.5 million and Unlisted Leaf with 2 million and, bunch of people around that 50,000, 100,000. Like, remove yourself out of 2023 and just rewind 4 years ago. The amount of people that had that many subscribers was minimal to none almost. I mean, 4 or 5 years ago, even like the guys who have a million, like Leonhardt was still starting off 5 years ago. Real Breaking Nate was still starting off 5 years ago. Like, sure, Primetime Pokemon might have had the most subscribers at the time, but you know, even a guy like Zach Gemmint Pokemon, who a lot of people watch his videos, SM Pratt, a lot of people watch his videos. You go back 5 years ago, when these guys hit 3,000, 5,000 subscribers, I remember, especially Scott, when Scott hit like 3,000 subscribers, I went, wow, I can't believe that Scott was able to find 3,000 people that want to listen to Pokemon investing content on YouTube. And that was an amazing, amazing feat for Scott to do. That was just because nobody was doing it, you know. When Gem Mint was doing his PSA return videos and he was able to hit those numbers, it was like, wow. But now, forget about it. It's like everybody has millions. But I'm happy just doing what I'm doing with 6,969 subscribers. Let's see. So, Son of a Mewtwo said, Uncle Ben always said, if you can help someone, you have a moral obligation to do so. With your limits, obviously. Yep. Shout out to Uncle Ben. With great power comes great responsibility. So, PokemonIfs.com says, I like sealed Japanese booster boxes only, nothing else. Hey, man. If you find your niche, the thing that makes you happiest, go for it, man. I don't love Japanese booster boxes, but if you do, more power to you, my friend. So Girls Like My Hair says, is the Chinese Marnie collection a good buy right now, or do you think it will get cheaper later? So we're supposed to see 2 more reprints in September and another reprint in December. So those 2 reprints could potentially drive down those prices. Like, got to look at what that Marnie card's doing in Raw, if it was worth it to send to PSA. Like, Chinese print quality is pretty good. I don't know. I got to think about it. Eggplant Low says, anybody not invested in Pokemon and just listen to PK rants like a podcast? I think it would be tough to listen to these videos and not really like have any skin in the game when it comes to Pokemon. E-Unit says, I just invested in old made PSA 9s. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Cheval says, open packs where the chase card and PSA 9 makes you lose money. Yeah. Chill Phil says, PK in a rabbit hole of what is. Yeah. Johnny Bongo says, we are in another perfect storm in this Scarlet and Violet block with booster boxes less than $100. Yeah, especially with MSRP price increases, especially when you start to look at what people are having to pay from distribution for booster boxes. All right. Me personally, I just think that this is a lot of like distribution getting very, very greedy. And all I mean by that is you have distributors doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Distributors are more or less like, in a way, becoming their own sort of investors. We've heard like information that some of these distributors are sitting on product, more or less like kind of in a way scalping prices as distribution, meaning they're putting away some pallets of certain products, and while it is still available at distribution, it's only available at these super inflated marked up prices. And then when it comes to a lot of these modern boxes, they're selling them to certain people at $100, but in order to pick them up at $100, there's all these auxiliary products they have to add on. But then we're also hearing from other people with really big accounts that they don't have to do this. So then it's like some people do have to buy it, because there's a lot of people, and I this is things I've come to find out afterwards too, is like there's a lot of people with like distribution who they only can get whatever is advertised from distribution. Meaning, if their distributor advertises some shitty bundle deal where in order to get a couple cases of booster boxes, they have to buy all these shitty products, if they pass on that, that's it for them. Meaning, do not pass go, do not collect $200. it ends there, you know. But then there's other people, I guess, that are like the monster buyers that are doing millions upon $1 million a year, and then they don't have to worry about those bundle deals. They can now buy just straight up booster boxes, and they could just more or less pick up the phone and call those distributors directly, and like all this crazy stuff. So even with all that stuff going on, there's some people that can still sell Scarlet and Violet booster boxes at sub $100 and still potentially make a couple dollars, where other people are losing money. It's like all this. That's like a lot, though. So Shug Nasty says the amount of revenue that Blake's Break was allowed to earn is reflective on how immature the hobby is. Growing pains. Yeah. It's growing pains, but I don't think a platform, because in reality, Whatnot should just never exist. And I've mentioned this before. Like, when you break it down and you peel back all the layers of Whatnot is, on paper, Whatnot should not be able to be a platform. It shouldn't exist because people should never want to pay inflated prices to open up a product that they could just open up themselves for cheaper. But reality, real life, that's not the case. Like, Whatnot will always be able to exist because there will always be people out there who do want to have somebody open their pack. It's just sad that a lot of the arguments I've heard from people, and a lot of the reasonality that they spent all this money was because they did feel that they were part of that community. And I don't love the thought of the only way you felt you were part of a community is which you had to more or less pay to play. You know, it's like buying friends in a way. Like, you don't got to buy friends. Like, you could go hang out in this live chat right now. There's probably a lot of names right now. A lot of people are having, their own conversations. A lot of people know each other just by name alone in this chat. Same as other chats, same as other Discord groups. People know who each other are. This is free. There's no money. You don't have to pay to chat. Like, you can just chat. It's free. Do it. Be respectful. If you're not respectful, you won't be allowed to chat. But, like, it's free. You can make your friends. It's part of growing that community. And I think I am at a nice position too, where 6,969 subscribers is still a small enough number. It allows that to be possible. I always like say, for reference for everybody out there, if anybody is out there like wants to make their own YouTube channel and stuff, and maybe they feel like it's a struggle, I had to make 5 videos before I got my first subscribers. I had 40 total watches across 5 videos. So that averages to less than 10 views per video. So I had to make 5 videos before I got my first subscriber. So it's been a long uphill battle for me, but I've loved every step of that walk up that hill. So shout out to Mr. Tax Advice himself, Dan Catch'em-all Collectibles, says, damn, I'm late, but I'm here for the happy ending. Ooh, it's not that type of happy ending, Dan. Sorry. I should have knew somebody would take it there. Will your Pokemon journey have a happy ending? Not that type of happy ending, Mr. Soldier Boy there. Basics trolling in the chat. Basic says, this is not a community. This is a communism. Let's see. So Basic said, tell Opossum Bud to take down the MetaZoo video, PK, or the MetaZoo gang will ride. I guess there's a MetaZoo video was recently released. I gotta watch that. Let's see. Yeah. All right. I'm not going to keep scrolling down, but I am going to just say this one more time. If you guys are going to Charlotte, man, it's going to be fun. We're about a month away. If you want to come hang out, you're more than welcome. It might be really hard for me to talk to you guys while I'm vending, when I'm behind the table, because I will be selling cards. So if I can't talk to you when you come up to the table, don't feel like it's disrespectful. It's nothing personal. But after the fact, hotel lobby, trade night, stuff like this, come up to me, introduce yourself, introduce yourself to other people in this hobby. Let this hobby be more immersive for you, like expand in this hobby. Like I always, I know everyone kind of knows who Mertz is now. Mertz got his own channel. Mertz is super active in different Discords. First time I really ever met Mertz, I had seen his name like in passing, was at Denver CollectCon, first time I ever met him, and he more or less just came up, introduced himself. I had dinner with him. Uh, Me, Lord Pokesmoke, Pokemon Classics. Like, I feel like Mertz is a good friend of mine at this point. I feel like I know him really well, and he's really grown himself in this hobby so much in a relatively short amount of time, because before Denver, there was no Mertz YouTube channel, anything like that. So anybody could grow themselves, and you can grow so fast. Like, he's had a very fast growth. It's awesome watching what he's doing. Like, but anyone could do that. Like, that's the beautiful thing about this hobby, is it's so open, it's so welcoming to everybody. But yeah, guys, listen, appreciate every single one of you. As always, I'll catch you on the next video. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe if you're not subscribed. Getting to that 69,000 or 6,900